28. The Lion Life and Levi Lives. Once upon a time, I got wind of an enchanting story, and it was a certain type of allegory. Then, without even trying, I went with the flow, and so I followed the ideas as I drifted in a sacred stream where I could finally let go. This story captivated my mind, and so I heard a voice tell me its title would be called Life with One Eye. There I followed the rhythmic rhymes while offering it up to the heavens through the sky. For this story had called out for someone to write it, and I knew the writer mustn't quit. My only choice was to let go of any attachment to the story itself, and so I pictured the man who would catch this idea and write it. I saw the man working. There he typed endlessly with bright blue eyes. The harder he worked, the more I trusted in him, and even though the journey grew intense, I believed with my whole heart that he would do what was right. He would write and write and write, and he never lost sight. He would use poems to untie the knots in his mind. There I felt him, tuning in from a spiritual eye, where this story would not die. And so in time, a man would remove his left eye, and there he would gain the spiritual sight, where the story would come to life. A moment later, I heard something bouncing. "It's time. The Eye of Horus is here," said Medusa. I ran to the dark stairs, and there was a single blue eye. I took it in my hands, and there I cried.
Planted under the altar in the sacred temple, it is time to make magic. The man who sacrificed his eye is suffering, but this wound is not tragic. It has started a shift, and so it begins. Soon you will meet two others who have been haunted by the darkness of this descent. It will not be easy, but it is rather simple. We are here to work with them and teach them, and that is the principle. Do not give up, and we'll get through this. Above all, dear Dionysus, you mustn't quit,
said Medusa. A moment later, I heard a body tumbling, and there he came crashing down.
Levi lives,
said Medusa.
Now patch up his wound.
This man named Levi was bleeding, and he was difficult to work with. He made me so angry at times that the beast within would emerge, and so Medusa chained the man up. It was horrible at times, but I was doing my best. Please, Medusa, help us. Remind Levi that through this path we are blessed. Not long after, a person named Jane came crashing down. Medusa carried a deceased black cat, and Jane was kind to start, but she too brought out my demon, and so an inner devil emerged. I cultivated a flame in my hand, and so the light began to soar. Jane told me she had a magic stone, and it reminded me of Merlin's magic flint. Then I transformed back into a child, and into the sacred temple she went. Levi and I backed away. That's when Medusa carried Jane through the chakras. Holy shit, it is all magic. Once Medusa and Jane went through the sacred tower, I was left with Levi, who was chained up. Then a moment later, the entire cave began to shudder and shake when the cavern collapsed. Nearly dead, it was as if we were pinned in ancient teeth. Levi looked destroyed. Why, he looked ruined, bloodied, chained up. And when I saw the despair in his eyes, I wanted to help him so much so that he wouldn't give up. If we bring forth what is inside of us, what we bring forth will save us. There was a great pause while I stared into his brown eyes. Then why are we trapped? There's no way out, he yelled. My eyes turned red after I heard him shout. We can pray. Maybe a prayer will reveal the way, I said. How will a prayer help? We're stuck in hell, damn it. We're trapped in the center of the earth, and no one will find us buried in this granite, said Levi. Not quite. This is heaven, but you haven't found it yet. There's nothing to worry about. We alone are our own worst threat. There were rocks on top of us, there were rocks beneath us, and everywhere we crawled, we felt the jagged jaws of nature's sharp teeth clench down around us. Only moments ago, Jane reached the top of the tower when there was a terrible earthquake. Then the entire cavern collapsed around us before jagged rocks started to fall and break. Of course, this could be hell, but it wasn't hot like you'd imagine hell to be. It was lonely, cold, and Levi believed that there was no way we'd get freed. Now that hell you speak of, there is one way out, but it only appears once you start looking for opportunities, and that's when you discover what heaven is really about. Keep one eye open in case something changes, and be mindful of how these stories emerge as nothing more than a dream. Each of us is an architect of his or her true fortune, and in the end, a human being's life is measured by the challenges that have been redeemed. Opportunities, my boy, but what is left of our life? All that's left is to give our own lives and wait for death, said Levi. And that is our opportunity. A life to live, a life to be. A life to live, a life to be. A life to live, and that is our opportunity. And these opportunities I speak of are hidden in something like a maze. Why, yes, these opportunities are portals waiting to be discovered. Mind you, they're hiding in plain sight. And these are fresh beginnings that are waiting to be uncovered. This moment is our opportunity. There we can realize we're already free. All you have to do is look through the right lens, and then you'll see we're right where we need to be. A life to live, a life to be, I said. What are you talking about? I'm afraid this is the end. I've never been closer to death. This is it, my friend, said Levi. The end is the beginning, and the beginning is the end. You're just looking at it with the wrong perspective, and that's why we need to get you the proper lens. Now it takes the right focus, and anyone can see it with a focused eye. Heaven is right in front of us, not a place after you die. The way to freedom may seem elusive, but it's so obvious, even if it's sneaky yet stern. I've learned to follow the intuition's way, because going forward is my only concern. Woe to those who turn back. Once we start, we ought not turn around and waste our time. We must continue onward, through to the end of the labyrinth, even if it feels like a never-ending climb. Know this climb is heaven. Paradise is the journey to the mountain's peak, because wherever you stumble, there lies the treasure you seek. Oh, but we've been damned. This is the opposite of paradise. How could I deserve this? Surely my sins do not constitute this as a price for my life, said Levi. Transcend duality. Look beyond pain and pleasure. Wherever you stumble, there lies your treasure, I said a second time. Are we dead? Asked Levi. Silent as two mice, it was clear that something had happened to my mind. I remembered a memory where I turned into a beast, or was that beast living in my poor body by design? How on earth could I describe it? And so I giggled and danced, but Levi felt no exuberance, since he believed there was nowhere we could advance. We want to live. Father, I say this to you. We want to live. Father, I call out to you. I am sending my plea. He is in misery. I pray to you. We want to live on. Father, I say this to you. A life to live, a life to be. A life to come, a life to be. A life to live, a life to be. Take pity on me. Father, have mercy. I am sending my plea. Great Spirit, take pity. A life to come, a life to be. A life to come, a life to be, I sang out. This was a song of sorts, as I sang the vibration through the maze of rocky walls. The song rippled among the collapsed formations, entrenched like the jaws of what felt like an ancient snake. Samskara, I said, pointing at the cavern rocks. This rocky ridgeline held a crawl space with enough open room to shuffle through this gap. The tunnel was big enough for both of us, but both of us were trapped. Levi's eyes gazed into mine. His hands were so scared when I raised a merlinite stone in my left fist, while I raised the selenite wand in my right. Oh, now I remember. All we have to do is surrender. Have you heard about the tree of life? Oh, poor Dionysus, your joy is making me so sad. Do you understand that we're trapped? I'm afraid you've gone mad, said Levi. I'm madly in love. And who are you? I'm Levi. Don't you remember? He said. And we're trapped in hell, aren't we? Does that mean I'm damned? I swear I did my best to live a good life, but I am just a simple man, said Levi. We're not dead, and neither of us are damned. All we need is one little opportunity to break free, and that's our plan. Levi raised his arms and felt the metal collar still chained around him, like the trapped ego he appeared to be. Naked, hairy, and covered in dirt, he crouched low and sat on the rocky teeth. I thought I'd be more afraid to die, but I'm just exhausted, said Levi. Opportunities appear when we are fearless, so we must be close. Cheer up! This is how life on the grapevine grows. I tilted my head and looked into Levi's eyes. There I saw the only light left in this maze. His eyes were glowing, and I saw the sacredness of Levi's soul. I started to cry out of joy because I felt so much love. Are you crying? Asked Levi. Rudraksha, there is a way out, I said. No, it's not possible, said Levi. Never say never. The grapevine of creation is unstoppable. The grapevine. Did he know what I was talking about? The more sense I spoke, the more anger Levi felt. Then a thought came into his mind, and I could feel the grooves of his mental patterns etched into his brain. There the suffering was rooted as firm as these jagged rocky formations, and somehow he began to notice that this was the basis of all his pain. Do you hear that? It was silent, except for a trickle of water. Yes, we heard drips of water before it splashed into a pool. Those tears poured out of my eyes, and now I felt the beauty of being a joyful fool. What is that? Asked Levi. That's our opportunity. It's how we go from darkness to light. This is the lowest spot on the deepest level. And when I imagine the grapevine, then you need water to bring it to life. Huh? Said Levi. It was so dark, and I'm certain that Levi and I would soon be saved. Levi's fingers meandered along the edges of this crawl space, but everywhere he looked, he could not find the path ahead. Come back to the present. Can you hear that water trickling down? Creation requires water, and this is how life was first found. Yes, I hear it, said Levi. Then my ma was right. Oh, Levi, there's no need to lose sight. Even though we're at the very bottom of it all, this is where creation is brought to life. No need to worry. This water is how we'll heal. We'll climb up through the grapevine, because I'm certain the tree of life is real. But it appeared that Levi didn't believe in the tree of life. I could hear him thinking, no way, no how. This delusion twisted his mind into a knot about whatever I said, and he wondered what I was rambling about now. Oh, I even remember an ancient code, but I forgot how it goes. I lowered my body through a tight opening wedged between two of the giant rocky teeth. Then my body descended into the darkness, while only my head poked out. Do you think any of this is even real? Asked Levi. God is real? And what about that code? Tell me what you remember, said Levi. It's my great-grandma's code. This could have been like any dream I'd ever felt. My heart opened bigger for whatever beautiful opportunity we had. Levi's life was far from normal, and I couldn't remember any man's which had started off so heart-wrenching and bad. It was so surreal. Is this how Job in the Old Testament felt? Levi had been stuck with me for so long, and so he collapsed onto his knees while he knelt. The journey took him as far as he could go, and still I kept descending down. How much deeper can one man go when there wasn't any hope to be found? There is a way to be free, even though this was the bottom at the end. But somehow Levi was upset before my head disappeared in between the rocks when I heard my voice ascend. It's a tight fit, but I think you can make it. The water is flowing down here, so I know the water can escape it. I kept going down, but Levi could barely go on. This was as far as he wanted to venture, as he was done with this worldly phenomenon. Then he began to accept his finality, and now he was coming to terms with death. Lying in the earth, all he wanted was eternal rest. Can you go a little deeper? There's something enchanting buried in this ground. Only after we experience hopelessness can we understand where the magic is found. I was beneath him when his toes reached into the crevice. My body was long gone inside the opening, while Levi felt the spaciousness of the only dark descent left. Levi was above and out of sight when I slid into that dark opening like the water dripping over the cavern walls. This is the opportunity. This is our way out. You're just like all the other shamans who touched the end of the underworld, and that's how they discovered our spirit's healing route. It appeared to get worse and worse the further we went, and now I led Levi into an opening so tight that the rocks pressed against his body while his limbs were bent. Step after step, he lowered his body deeper while he started to cry, but he could barely fit as the shackle around his neck scraped the rocky sides. Dionysus, whoa there, can you hear me? I don't know if I can fit. I've got the shackle around my neck. I'm getting stuck, he said. Step by step, his body squeezed around the tight tunnel before I could smell blood from a cut he had, and so I reflected as my dreams were becoming real. After a few more steps, the shackle around his neck got stuck between two boulders when his temper boiled over as Levi yelled, "Damn it! How'd we end up down here?" The code! It's the one my great-grandma knows. We're following the tree of life, and that's how life on the grapevine grows. You have to trust me. Levi wondered about the code, and he was curious why he would even listen to me as a little boy. There's no code, and we're going to die down here, said Levi. Don't get angry. Please, I begged. I don't want to forget again. I just want to remember. Here, I have Medusa's key. Remember Jane's selenite wand that got her free? She said this crystal belonged to a psychopomp, and I'll unlock your neck. But only if you promise that you're here to protect. Protect what? He said. The code and our calling. That's the way we'll get through these rocks. We're following water because it leads to life. And if we use the elements of nature correctly, then they'll act like a combination to a very secret lock. This dream was like a puzzle, and my intuition knew the way through the labyrinth to be freed. If Levi said yes to me, then what? Then would we find what we need? Fine. I'll look after you. I promise I'll protect you, said Levi. Even I know it's easy to take a promise when you're on your deathbed, because there's a certain feeling that nothing worse could go wrong. And if this leads us back to life, then someday I'll write a book about this terror and transform it with poetry and call it God's Song. Now the rhyme passed through my brain without thinking. And where were these thoughts in our heads coming from? Sitaram, Jai Hanuman. I paused, but please don't break the promise. I pressed the selenite wand around the shackle on Levi's neck when it opened, fell beneath us, and splashed down below. Yes, there was a pond down below. A pond? Water leads to life. All life needs water. See, it's all because of the grapevine's code. Now let's get down there and swim like silly otters. Then I let go of the rocks and yelped as my body fell and splashed into the dark pond below. What is it, Dionysus? Asked Levi. My head resurfaced. Water! It's fresh water! Next, Levi jumped in, and then he giggled just like me, and he splashed about in the dim pond. Now what was that code? What does it say? How'd you know to come down here even deeper? How'd you realize that this was the way? Said Levi. It's my great-grandma's code. It said something about the grapevine of life and how to get out of suffering's trap. Levi drank mouthfuls of water, but I struggled to swim. My chest and neck stayed afloat, but everything else was sinking. I latched onto Levi when he carried me to the shore of this inner cavern. I can't swim so good. It's all right. You did well. You're a good boy, Dionysus, said Levi. I was hunched over while neither of us moved. I could feel Levi's eyes because he was looking at my hooves. What is it? I asked. He'd never seen legs like this. Are you okay? Asked Levi. My hooves just don't swim so good. That's all. I pulled up my pant leg and showed him I was only half a boy. Right, said Levi. He had never seen such strange feet on anyone either, and he wondered where my fur would end. Why, not long ago, I swear I transformed into a terrible beast, but now I was kind again. Are we friends? Asked Levi. Well, you're my protector now, so I don't see why not. After all we got. Then can I ask you a question, since we're friends? Asked Levi. Sure. What are you? Asked Levi. The thought perplexed me, and he looked away in case he hurt my feelings. But I didn't know what to say, because a noun like that was out of my understanding. Don't leave. I'm still thinking of an answer. I just don't know how to say it. Oh, he paused. Well, Medusa told me I'm like Dionysus, but I'm not sure if that's really who I am. I'll let you know once I stop forgetting, but all I remember is that my lower nature is a creature that hasn't really swam. And why do you keep forgetting? He asked. How would I know? I'm always forgetting what I'm supposed to know. 1 minute everything's just fine, then the next thing I know, I'm seeing red, and I forget how it goes. But you can remember that you're forgetting. That means you remember something, asked Levi. Oh, sure. I remember after I forget. I guess all I remember is to keep going, and that's why I never quit. And what does it feel like? Asked Levi. A moment later, an exotic bird appeared. Had it flown in, or how had it gotten there? There it was, perched upright on the other shoreline, still as a ghost. And was this a white crane? The bird was silent, with one eye on us, when I spoke aloud and began to explain. First, the forgetting starts with a panic. Then something terrible grips me from all sides. It always feels like I'm fighting against fire, but that's like trying to run from a giant beast when there's nowhere to hide. Pretty soon worries turn to rage. Then a beast takes over all control. And if I could stop it, I would. But by the time I wake up, it steals all the memories from my tired little soul. I'm so sick of not remembering. That's why my great-grandma wrote down the yogi's code. She said it's the ancient secret from the wisdom of the sages. It's the way how the grapevine grows. Yes, and what about this grapevine? Said Levi. I shook my head. Ma said the grapevine is the way, and if I keep trying, I'll find it soon. Medusa said that out of all people ever born, that next time it's my time to bloom. Next time? And what's the code used for? Asked Levi. Gardening, I think. Did you say gardening? Why, I've lost my mind, said Levi. For the flower of life, of course, since all vines need water, especially the ones stuck in rocks, and that's why I knew I had to follow the water leaking from my teardrops. And you haven't lost your mind. You're so close to being sane. But now I'm getting awfully curious about this strange white crane. I stepped my hooves into the shallows. Then I balanced my weight on my right foot. I bent the left knee and took hold of the left ankle behind my body with the left arm. Standing tall, I opened my chest, then inhaled and raised the right arm overhead. I pressed the left leg into my hand, imitating the bird's wing. My back was curved like a bird, and why, yes, I balanced on one leg, tilted, while I spoke without words to the white crane. What are you doing? Levi whispered. Natarajasana, the king dancer pose. It's called play. I'm part animal, and so I'm listening to what this white crane has to say." The bird rotated his head, as if to check that the coast was clear. Then it began creeping along the far shoreline into one of those dark tunnels. Yep, I knew it. This bird knows the way out. He said he'll lead us as long as we keep up. But there's something he wants to show us first. We're making a pit stop at the Giant King's Cup. Peering through this underground layer, Levi watched the crane enter into the deep water, which stretched down the dark cavern before the bird disappeared into the lack of light. Levi wondered if we were really going to follow it into that deep water with no sight. And so I wondered in awe, why yes, it's happening. After all, this is the grapevine of life, and whatever the world needs, then I'm here to give. Thank you, God. Levi lives.